Welcome back, Dragon Ballers, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
And your host on the right, Brock.
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. And in this episode, we're continuing on with Dragon Ball, our regularly scheduled programming, except this wasn't scheduled. It was kind of last minute, but we decided we were going to try and squeeze in an episode. So, without further ado, I would just say, please give us a like and subscribe if you like what you hear. And I don't think we have any other housekeeping stuff unless Brock has something to say.
No, I think we should just jump right into this one.
Sounds good to me. So on the last episode, we talked about everyone getting revived. Well, first of all, the dragon getting revived and then him reviving everyone. All of the characters that died from Piccolo and his minions. And so we're still in that vein now. And so let's continue a little because this is kind of a recap. Ooh, I need to mute that. And so the episode title is Quicker Than Lightning, and we're going to see why here in a minute. So like I was saying, the first thing we see is Goku is training under Popo, and he tells Goku that he has to empty his mind in order to be as quiet as the sky and quicker than lightning. Goku tries to act as a stone as a method to achieve this, and that's Popo's behest. And then really quickly, we're going to get a transition, and there's only really one thing I want to point out here, but it's going to transition to the crew on Kame House, Brock. So what do you want to say about this just as a pre-teaser, because it's about to change?
This is just a reiteration of what we had already established. One thing that I did think that was interesting is whenever he says specifically what you pointed out, to be as quiet as the sky and move as quickly as lightning, because that will come back. There's the old saying, like a bolt from the blue, kind of comes from that same vein of the more mythological interpretation of what lightning is and what the sky is. We'll get into that later on throughout this episode and even into the next few episodes. But whenever you hear something like that, like a bolt from the blue, it is kind of talking about something dawning upon you, or just very sudden out of nothing, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's there's definitely a flow or a current, if you will, to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is the method by which Popo begins to get Goku on this path is he tells him to act as a stone, says that stones don't talk, stones don't get hurt because he gets stung by a bee. Goku got stung by a bee.
Right.
And I want to just point out that the quietness of the mind is only achievable by someone that is already at Goku's level at this point. Like it's beyond, and it's the reason that he hasn't had this training until now. So there's something I noticed too earlier. Like, actually, I have a question. Is Korin pure white, or is he like a whitish, like an off white, like a grayish white?
I would say he's pure white.
Okay, he is pure white. There's some grayness about him in terms of the wisdom he imparts, right? Because he's the middle, he's like Middle Earth, right? Versus the underworld of Baba and the upper world of Kami. And so even though he is pure white, I'm just saying there's grayness to his character in that regard. And why I'm bringing that up is because that has to first be mastered before one can act as a stone.
Right, and that comes back after we're done checking in with the gang too, with something very specific.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of just left it off at that point for the summary, because we're going to get back to it in just a second. But let's go to the gang real quick. So Tien and Krillin are fighting, which is interesting because I don't think they fought before, did they?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't recall
in that tournament. Yeah, in that tournament, this is like the only time they do this. Yeah, In the last tournament, Goku fights Krillin and knocks him out in the semis. And so then this is the real part I want to talk about. There's not that much to talk about with the boys. But Bulma, of course, she is relaxing on the island and she wants some suntan lotion. And so she asks Puar to put it on her. And just as Puar is going to do that, Oolong pushes her out of the way. And then, before he can do it, Roshi knocks Oolong out with his staff and tries to put the lotion on Bulma. He, of course, because he is the Roshi, which might not have happened with Oolong, but because he is the Roshi, he announces his intentions, and Bulma is able to run out of the way in time. But the real point of that I want to bring up is Launch here. Launch coming to punish Roshi for these actions with her SMG here, where she tries to shoot at him. Wow, and that's such a short scene that it just goes straight there. I'm going to leave it at this frame. I like it.
Yeah, it's nothing we haven't talked about before, but it is sort of establishing where we're at as kind of a reflection of Goku not being able to calm his mind. There's this sort of the same interplay happening here with this how would I say, like, I don't want to call it like a dysfunction, but there is that sort of back and forth. This sort of like it plays it out very quickly, right? That everything is kind of back to where it was. Like we've reset and things are the way that they were before everybody died. And everyone's kind of reestablished themselves in that same hierarchy of how they interact with each other.
Yes, except I think at this point we see Launch being an externalization of Bulma's confidence and growing femininity and comfortability in womanhood, because at this point now she has kind of earned that respect, right? And so when Roshi does these things, it's not just, he doesn't just kind of get away with them, and it's not Bulma that even has to do it. It's Launch stepping up, being in her mommy role, let's say, and protecting Bulma's dignity.
It's not necessarily the first time. Remember whenever they came back from the bottom of the sea and Bulma had the diamond, which then Launch ran off with when Roshi tried to take it for himself. I think it was playing out the same thing sort of symbolically, but that was the first time that we saw that sort of chain of events happen.
Oh, does Launch do that when Roshi's being this way?
So as a quick recap, because it's been a long time since we talked about it, essentially we had this thing with the diamond that Bulma kept storing in her panties.
Yes.
And she would just pull it out of nowhere, basically. And the diamond, Roshi is like, I want that diamond because we can sell it and we can get a whole bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately Launch comes out and steals it and then flies away with it. And we never hear about it again. And so when we talked about it before, it was kind of the same thing where there was that value of the valuation of femininity and the respect for it.
But this is a more overt and personal to Bulma, because let's say the diamond, right, is representative of that precious nature of female sexuality. And so in this instance, it's actually like, it's more personal, I want to say, and it's more because Bulma has developed into that. But yeah, I think it's an expansion on the same idea. We're building on it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's all I have to say about that. I don't have much, unless you want to say something about the lads. I think that's pretty much
not really
all that's happened.
This is basic. This whole scene is just like a recap that like things are normal.
Yeah. So then we get back to the upper world. And here, Goku tries to focus on being a stone, but his mind wanders to his friends. Popo, sensing the lack of focus, starts pelting Goku with walnuts that he's also eating. And as Goku focuses on being a stone only, not thinking, he is able to dodge the projectiles. Pleased with his success, Popo gives it some time and then goes and congratulates Goku, who has fallen asleep. And that's kind of the little arc of this training segment. And so there's a few things that I want to touch on here, but I'll let Brock go first.
Well, the thing that stands out to me the most with this is that, and maybe we'll work our way backward through it, but essentially, when Popo throws the second walnut at Goku, and we see that Goku has calmed himself and he slightly leans and dodges it, Popo's like, "Oh, nice." And then he comes up to him later and realizes he's asleep. And it's to me is a reflection of that Korin uh, training that Goku got, where he was able to tap into Korin's movements while he was asleep. Uh, there's that scene of Korin sleeping and Goku unconsciously imitating his movements. So there is this, through Goku's unconsciousness, he can kind of tap into the right pattern, but that's not the point. The point is to consciously get into that place. And so it's basically implying that Goku can get into that place by going back to the learning that he got from Korin, but he can't do it consciously. He gets into that state sort of as like a, not while he's asleep, but it's kind of in that in between state. So then Popo realizes, oh, he's not able to master it yet. He's not fully doing it consciously, and that's whenever it steps into the next thing.
Right. I think it's like the number 0. Like Korin has taught Goku to map different spirits on himself. So you have like Spirit 1, Spirit 2, Spirit 3. And so now basically Popo's telling him like, you're going to go to Spirit 0. You're not going to have it. It's just not going to be anything, right? And so that's being that emptiness to allow the proper spirit to inhabit you, right? And so that's why he's able to dodge the walnut. And something I want to say about the walnuts too are twofold. Both in Eastern mythology, they're seen to deal with intelligence and let's say mindfulness. They do look like a brain. But in Christian mythology, it's seen as the outer shell, the body, and the inner shell being like the soul or the spirit. And how Popo eats these is hilarious because he crushes the whole thing on the outside. Like, he doesn't crack it open. It just the whole thing disintegrates. Let me see if we can get it on here. Oh, right after this, yeah. So the whole thing disintegrates and then he just eats the whole thing like that. And it's like, yeah, he is feeding off the spirit energy, right? He is beyond the earthly, and he's able to just delete it from existence. That's one thing about the walnuts I wanted to say. And then the other thing about mapping spirits and going to like Spirit 0 is being able to be open to that instead of being open to what could be the right path. And then the falling asleep. Yes, and then the falling asleep part, I do like how you mentioned that because I think it does tie the two together, and that's why I started off with saying it's like numbers. But the falling asleep part is when people are asleep, they are like completely open. That's what dreams are all about, right? You can't control your dreams. You're open. They're open to anything. You can dream about anything. And so it's kind of the ultimate openness, but it's also the ultimate unconsciousness. And so what Brock was getting at with the bringing forth the consciousness forward so that people can, so that you can orient yourself in the world while maintaining the proper path. Even
it's
oh goodness,
it's getting towards that knife edge of, well, having an identity and having a purpose, but at the same time being completely open to that changing with the proper information because of the inevitable dogma of having an identity. And we'll get to that later on in this episode. But
well, it also comes with maturity, right? Because Goku is growing up during this arc, and he's gonna change after these next few episodes. And so it also has to do with that. Like it's not just in martial arts that people should be open to the world. It's kind of everywhere. It's a universal thing. And so it bears out in how Goku acts later on when he's an adult in a lot of ways. But it is something that needs to be learned, but it needs to be understood, and it's part of maturing that happens as part of the process. I think. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
No. What's up, Colbs? Thanks for tuning in.
Your favorite. Uh, Here I just wanted to say what he thinks about is kind of interesting. He wonders if they were actually brought back to life. He doesn't actually see, and here it says here, I wonder if they really came back to life. Because he hasn't seen the results, right? He hasn't gone back down to that level. And so that's one thing that he in part has to remain open to the idea that they are. Like he can't be despairing or like focusing on that while he's up here. And so it's almost the perfect thing to include as what he's thinking about and what he's worried about. That's the last thing I have to say about that. And so he finds that he's asleep, and now we're gonna get into the next bit of training. And so the next bit, Popo twirls a rod that looks like the Noibo at Goku, and since it appears to get closer, Goku reacts and tries to dodge out of the way. And Popo asks him why he dodges, and then tells him that eyes alone cannot see the truth. That's the next little segment that we have. Why is it the Noibo, Bob? Brock?
Why is it that Goku sees this pole as the Noibo, or why is it that
Yeah, why
Popo
is
does what he does? I think it's I'm not sure. I think it's essentially that it's Popo is expressing to him that he doesn't really fully understand uh where he is. The connection between heaven and earth that he's ridden up here, he had it, but he doesn't fully understand it. Because if he did understand it, there'd be a certain level of faith that Goku would carry. But because of that lack, because he's walking by sight, let's say, he is still operating on this sort of he's operating in a grounded way, as if he were still training with Korin. And the thing that's separating him from Korin, obviously, is the Noibo. It's what he rode up here on.
Yes, exactly. And so here we have to see that the ordinary can be mistaken for the extraordinary. And even though like Goku has gone up already, it's still he hasn't come fully to grips with the spiritual father, let's say his earthly father and Grandpa Gohan. He will in a couple arcs. But for now, he doesn't understand the reach of it, right? And so he mistakenly sees that the reach of the pole is longer than what it is. And I think it has to do with his I think it has to do with Goku incorporating the humility of the the humility of the I guess the humility of the self in the face of the not infinite, but the reach of the spiritual. And so we have the spiritual sight that he's supposed to be achieving that's not being reached because he's only looking with his eyes, and so he can't see the spirit of it. And so it appears that it's getting longer, but the spirit of it is ordinary.
It's basically Popo kind of pointing out that he doesn't appreciate where he is and what he's become by being here. And so he swings around a regular pole, which Goku can now mistake for the power pole because he doesn't know the difference. It's basically saying you don't really know what the power pole is.
Right. He knows it grows, right, but he doesn't know why, and he doesn't know the spiritual characteristics of it. He doesn't understand that in a way that he can articulate, or the
which
way
is tied into how he doesn't understand what that emptiness is. He's lacking that receptivity. And so it's kind of one and the same that he's swinging it at him, and he proves to him that his eyes are fooling him, essentially, that his ability to see the physical world is not going to give him the information he needs about his training here.
Right. It's a rare instance. No, actually it isn't. It's a real instance of Goku's reach exceeding his grasp. He can use the Noibo. He can get up here, but he actually grasp it? Does he understand what it means? So we'll move on from there because there's a next little bit. The last little training mini arc we have is after Popo. Popo kind of hits it on the head where he says, "Eyes alone cannot see the truth." And in the next little training segment, Popo ties a bell to the tail of a cat and tells a now blindfolded Goku to catch it. As Goku begins to try, Popo rings another bell behind his back and throws Goku off, telling him to empty his mind and things will become clear. After this is revealed, Goku asks to do the same training as Popo, and we'll get to that in just a second. So this cat thing is another, and it's not, I don't think it's an accident that it's a cat. I think it's very calling back to Korin. Korin also gave him the bell to bring him up there, if we recall. And so having to chase the cat and being fooled by the other bell is kind of the idea where we have, like, you know, you're going to map on spirit. You're going to like sense the breathing and sense the movements and then map the spirit onto you for the cat. Let's say it's 10. And so what will happen is Popo will also ring the 10 spirit. It'll imbibe that same spirit. And how are you to delineate the two? And so you have to see deeper than just the surface and how it pertains to the self.
I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. I think one thing about it too is the dimensionality of the trick, meaning that just because Goku has information, he doesn't have the context of the information to know what he's doing. And it reminds me of Dr. Peterson's, I think it's Dr. Peterson, or maybe it's Vervaeke. One of the two talks about the 9-dot problem, where you can give someone a piece of paper with 9 dots on it and say, you need to, with this many lines, connect all 9 dots. And people will say it's impossible. But if you go beyond the scope of the dots, outside of the range of them, you can actually create a shape that crosses through them and extends past them. And then people, when they realize they could do that, they go, oh, well, that's cheating. You could say that's cheating, but no one ever said you weren't allowed to extend past the edge of the dots, right? So the context of what he is doing is not clear to him. And so not only is Mr. Popo telling him, oh, you don't have all the information you need, but he's kind of implying to him, you don't have the context of what this information means. And so that's kind of where the trick is. Not only is he showing, like, oh, I can just duplicate that spirit and you won't be able to delineate between the two of them, but you didn't even know that you were dealing on that context, right?
Right. And Popo's basically pointing out it has to be more than imitation. Imitation isn't enough to be able to exist in the realm of ideas in the upper world, right? And so, wow, I just let that run too long. Should have paused it. Let me see. We'll go here. It's a lot of Popo. But
yeah, to tie that up also, Popo says to him, the truth is not always clear with sight or sound alone. Because it's about truth, right? The concept of truth, meaning, is his aim true? Well, he can think his aim is true based on those things, but we're talking about absolute truth, which has to have full receptivity to know to be able to perceive the truth that precedes your perception.
And it definitely goes beyond what you can see. Like, you know, a person can watch Pinocchio and see that there's a puppet that's walking around. But do you actually understand it, right? And so is the spirit apparent, or is it just what you're seeing that you're copying? And so yeah, and I think we can move on from there, because if you can't delineate from that, then a person is going to be unable to discriminate, and then you have a lot of issues that spiral out of that, and the chaos that emerges from not being able to delineate between spirits, and especially with the ability to map on others to yours. But we'll move on from that. So Goku asks, after this little exercise, Goku asks Popo to train him as he was trained by Kami. And Popo kind of warns him about it, but Goku's pretty insistent. So he takes him into Kami's house and enters a room that they use to transport Goku to another time and place. And before he goes, Popo tells him that he must bring back the Holy Crown atop Mount Thunder. Kami's also there. What is he says? He also warns Goku that it's going to be a challenge, and Goku's ready for it, of course, because he is open to the chaos of the world. The openness that we were talking about earlier is not quite the same as being like open to new experiences as so much as it is open to like the wisdom of the universe, more or less. There's a different part there. Do you understand what I'm saying, Brock?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an openness to what you perceive to be the potential chaos, and then there's also the openness to the fact that you may not know what the potential chaos could be. Uh, it's two different things. If somebody is open to fight, but they think they've mapped the entire terrain of what they could come up against, it's different from them saying that they're completely open to learn what they have not experienced as far as a limitation goes.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's got that next level of openness.
Right. And so that's what Popo's trying to instill in him, is that it's almost humility too, in a way that it's an accepting that the mystery of the universe exists, and that should be adhered to in such a way that can result in enlightenment. And so the first thing that Goku does is he meets Chu Li before attempting to climb Mount Thunder. I don't think they actually introduce each other or anything, but she just points to it. She'll come back in the episode in a minute. And then Goku climbs Mount Thunder and puts on the crown. He is initially relieved, thinking that it was a quite easy task. Of course, it's not that simple, because he tries to take off the crown, but it is stuck to his head. Suddenly, the clouds gather, and lightning seems to be drawn towards the crown as a thunderstorm approaches. And it strikes Goku once, and he tries to dodge a few times. He dodges one, but then gets struck again. And he's struck several times and sent tumbling down into the river below. So what do we say about that? One thing I'll say before I hand it over to Brock, actually, is I did some research, and I found that there is a myth about this, because originally I also thought it was about, or it was, let's say, a reference to Journey to the West, the crown that Sun Wukong wears, that kind of, or I guess it's like a circlet that he wears that controls him, that the monk uses to control him. But this is actually a call to a different legend, I believe, where some arrogant warlord, I think, tried to fashion himself to be king of the heavens, and so he made a crown of storms. And when he put it on, the god, the thunder god, was vengeful and struck it with lightning, and anyone that wore it after that gets struck by lightning. I believe that's the legend. I couldn't quite find it just a second ago, but I didn't have much time to research. So now I'll turn it over to Brock.
So there's something about it, and it gets revisited once he comes back the second time up here. But when Goku goes to the top, you said it yourself, he's relieved that it was this easy to get up here and get the crown, and he puts it on his head. That, I think, is symbolic of him basically crowning himself, of saying like, "Well, I guess I'm worthy. I guess I Kami told me this would be grueling, and I guess just the climb up here was grueling, and I'm so good that I overcame the grueling that easily." And that's his ego. That's his You had mentioned part of this training is that humility. So when he puts the crown on, he basically deems himself worthy of the thing that he doesn't even fully understand yet. And so he's struck by that lightning like a bolt out of the blue, uh, with this realization that no, you do not have the ability to understand what the test was, because the test is to understand what the test is essentially, and he doesn't, because he doesn't understand the wisdom of what the test is. Knocks him unconscious. He's unable to comprehend it, and when he tries to take the crown off, he's like, oh, never mind. Well, it's too late. The wisdom, now that he has stood atop the mount and declared himself to be worthy of the wisdom knocks him unconscious.
Yes. And something I want to point out too, what up, Baze? Something I want to point out as well is Popo never said he had to put on the crown. It's
Exactly.
pure ego.
It's
It's pure ego to put on the crown. But that's kind of the thing, and I think that's why Kami says it's so grueling and it's such a challenge, is because it is the challenge of changing oneself and incorporating that humility by being enlightened to the, let's say, absence of openness. But we'll get more into that in a minute. And the tumbling down below into the river, it's not an accident that he goes into water when he's unconscious. Water and unconsciousness go well together. And it's also flowing, which is what I was saying earlier about current being involved with it, as well as the flow of lightning. And we're seeing several versions of that. So let's continue. Let's see. So Chuli and her mom are out looking for the little bird she was with, Pee-Pee, and they find Goku and they rescue him, and they bring Goku back to their house and nurse him to health. Meanwhile, Chuli's bird is still missing, and she's desperate to find him. So the next morning, after Goku stays a bit, has some soup and stuff, the next morning she looks on the roof, or she's like on the roof, and her mom is calling out for her to get down and that it'll be dangerous for her to be up there. Basically, Goku rescues her. And later they discuss the events of the morning, and Chuli senses the approach of Pee-Pee and runs outside. Goku follows and uses this as inspiration for his task. So that's just a summary quick there, but I think there's a few things to mention. I think there's also one thing I missed. So one thing I missed there in the summary is the second night that he's there. So the first night he's just asleep because he just got struck by lightning a bunch. The next night he dreams about his experience. Oh no. I think it froze here. Hold on. It definitely froze. Give me 1 second.
Well, one thing I will say before that as well, when he wakes up the first day, he is told by Chun-Li's mother that there's a legend about the crown, that whoever obtains it will become the strongest in the world. And so naturally, Goku's response to that is, I have to get it, because that's his thing. That is that tie back to Sun Wukong as well, being the number one under the heavens. So that is a little bit of a tie-in to what Goku's misinterpreting about it, right? It said that whoever obtains it, again, no one's saying anything about wearing it.
Right. That's just Goku wanting to be that. And that's the aspiration isn't corrupt in itself, but it needs to be tempered with humility. And that, I think, is what we're getting at. especially because I appreciate the design here of Chu-Li and her mom, just because they're like out in the middle of nowhere, clearly not wealthy. Their house is pretty small. They're modest means, right? And it's by this, and Goku's like already saved the world at this point, but it's by this little girl's intuition that he understands what he has to do. And the other thing is here, he says, while he is not able to sleep at night, he says he wants to take the crown back. I need to move faster than lightning. And then comes all that stuff. If Goku, then they basically talk about if Goku wasn't there, she may have fallen off the roof. That's kind of the conversation they have right before Chu-Li has this like moment where she realizes that her bird's coming back. So I'm curious what you had to say. Yeah, right after getting saved, let's say, by Goku. And so we see basically the bird flies to her. And Goku, she says, I sensed its presence. And Goku's like, what do you mean its presence? And so this is what we're getting at when we're trying to see things for more than what they are, for more than the earthly. We're trying to add the vertical axis here. And so,
right, that's a good way to put it. The vertical axis being that this is a bird. It's a creature that she has had since it was a baby, that she has a relationship with, that flies, and she's able to sense it without hearing it, which is a tie back to the whole thing that Goku's not able to do. He's distracted by the sound, but she operates with a different type of hearing. She senses it, and that's what clues Goku in to what he needs to be able to do, which is hearing without hearing. He needs to be able to perceive something without the physicality, and so he has an aha moment that makes him immediately take off and sprint back to the mountain and try again.
And what to clarify what I mean by that, I think what we mean by that is being open and humble to the universe such that the seeming chaos that inhabits it is understandable or manageable. And so yeah, Goku goes back. I think, is there anything else we want to say about the family here?
Other than the fact that it's a woman and a young woman that tie into this, that Goku is going into essentially the chaotic, the unknown, and that he needs to be receptive of that element of things.
Definitely,
That
and women representing that, yeah.
it's the openness that he doesn't have, and it's the humility he doesn't have. So of course it's, an older woman and a younger girl.
Yeah, it's very Gaia-esque, right? There's no, and that's the thing. The bird is kind of the vertical axis by which Goku can recognize the family as a complete thing, and so he's able to like piece that together and then go and climb the mountain and all that. Yeah.
But I mean, it seems to be like a call from the unknown, which is sort
Yes.
of that feminine, unknown, chaotic thing. I mean, even
muse, yeah.
the cat that he was supposed to go and catch when he was on the lookout looked like Puar, like just a cat version, like a regular cat version of Puar, which is that feminine voice that comes to Yamcha, right?
Right. And yeah, and that's why the muse is female coded, let's say.
Mhm.
And all of that is to say that this being open to the humble means, and that's why I said I was liking that the depiction of it is that being open to these humble means allows Goku to incorporate the humility of that and use it in a productive way. So let's continue. And so basically the last thing we see happen, think it froze again. Stupid player. Oop, oop. Got ahead of ourselves. And so, yeah, it's the humble spirit that needs to be mapped. And so he has to interact with humble means that produce the unknown in a positive way that flows through Goku, right? And that's kind of the thing. It actually goes to something that's deeply in the meta-analysis of fiction, talking about the productive process and how it's not just the author that's making everything, right? It comes from somewhere, and where that place it comes from is in Greek mythology, at least, it's known as the muse, right? It and it's also in Eastern mythology, because Zen Buddhism teaches that the best art flows through the artist. It's not the art is the arbiter of what it is. And so I really like this episode because it shows that Goku is not the arbiter of his destiny in an egoistic way, in a power way, right? It has to be through the humility of the ages and the accepting of the universal mysteries.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good way of putting it.
And so he goes back to the crown and attempts to wear it again. And this time he's focused and he closes his eyes and he dodges one strike of lightning, and then he celebrates. And as he celebrates, he gets struck again, which is hilarious. And then the episode just kind of ends. It's the narrator comes over and he's like, the training has just begun. So we're getting right to the end. Oh, I guess I forgot to say that Popo and Kami are indeed watching. And
right now, it's
yeah, go ahead.
You don't have to say too much to explain why he gets struck. It's the same reason he got struck in the first place, and it's the reason that every time he puts the crown on, he gets struck. It is that as soon as he believes that he has mapped the whole training, he is struck down again. Because the concept of the training is such that you're never done becoming what you're becoming, right? It's
Mhm.
it's a mode of, it's a directionality rather than a destination.
Yes, it's there is no destination exactly. It's very much adopting a mode of being that we're trying to get to. And so after Goku celebrates, he gets struck by lightning again, and then the training has only begun, and that's basically the end of the episode. So, what else do we want to say here as we kind of conclude?
It's kind of it leaves it without a really I would say satisfactory ending, because this really is just the beginning of the training that's being symbolically played out, and then we're going to shift and pick up another facet of it in the next episode. So this is really sort of a parable episode about how, even though Goku has reached that state, he's still human, he still has his ego to grapple with.
Yes.
He still has identity that he has not completely conquered.
Right. And I think that's something that we definitely see a difference of between Kid Goku and young adult Goku. There's a lot more humility, I think, in the latter there. But and I think it's a result of all of this training. We'll get to that eventually. Like I said, I do also I like all the plugs they use in this episode about flow and current coming together, and you're allowing the currents of the universe to flow around you, basically, is what you're trying to do, is find a path to walk through those. And I don't know if it actually, I do. I agree with what you were saying about trying to map out everything, because yeah, that's the whole point, is like you're trying to move through the flows of the universe. You're not trying to conduct them or anything. Or
Right. And I do want to point out too, earlier in the episode, Popo had told Goku, you need to be like a stone. that's not moved by the wind or the rain, not moved by the water, right?
We
And
will
then
get to
we
that.
see when he's in the water, he's unconscious next to rocks in the water. He's like that stone when he's not conscious. So it's
Yes.
pointing out again, he needs to be like that while he is conscious.
Yes, yes. And it's the 2 times he's asleep in the episode. There you go. There's another connecting thing. Okay, we have some chats that I want to address. Bays says, doesn't he conquer himself on the gravity training to Namek? I don't want to give anything away with that because I have a lot to say about all of the stuff, and just including Namek is such a big thing.
Yeah, that would take a long time to explain my perspective on with a lot of context, but in a sense, but not really. The whole concept of going to Namek and what Goku's doing when he's doing the gravity training, uh, it'll become a lot more clear once we're talking about Z, I think,
Yeah, yeah, for
because
sure.
Namek has stepped, or all of Z has stepped up to a different cosmic
Yeah,
level.
we're 5 steps, 6 steps away from that right now. It's more complicated than just to say he conquers himself. He does. What can I say here to make it kind of concise? He uses here, let's say he masters the use of let's say difficulty. He basically is in a simple, let's say, explanation, he's exploiting the difficulty of movement, and that's something that
We can't
see.
talk about it before King Kai's planet, right?
Yeah, oh gosh, I know, right? And so, and see, that's the other thing, we have to then talk about the 10 times gravity on planet Vegeta, which is why, oh gosh. Okay, so yeah. So basically, to get into it though, is he's exploiting the difficulty of movement, which has existed in the past and is present in
But now he's able to do it for himself and grasp it,
and he's
kind
able
of.
to do that. And thanks to the, let's say, thanks to the benevolent societal father, he is able to control the difficulty of movement. And why is that? Well, think about societies. Was it more or less difficult to orient yourself in the world in the past when it was like really difficult to do things and there wasn't a lot of upward mobility, or is it easier now? And that's kind of what we're, and that's, I think, why it has to be the societal father that constructs that for him. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I'm already spouting off things that we haven't said yet. But that's a great question. Please.
Having that a bit of that Pajot moment where you're like, how can I say this?
Yeah. Please ask as many questions as you would like. I hope we can answer. Hope we can answer them.
It's one thing that's
context.
so crazy. You said that, I think you said before, Bays, that you had binged it, and that's pretty much the only way to understand the analysis is to go sequentially, because everything is written in Dragon Ball to stack upon what came before to keep expanding and expanding. So when you try to step out, the first thing we learned when we started making this podcast was skipping ahead made it almost impossible to talk about.
Oh, you mean episode 1?
Yeah, the secret hidden episode 1.
Oh man. Okay. If we get more subscribers and things, we got to release that at some point. Maybe to our Patreon only fans. I don't know.
It was us running straight into a wall for 45 minutes.
It was so wild. Yeah, we were trying to cover like all of Dragon Ball. I think we were trying to do all of Dragon Ball in one video.
We got like to Korin's Tower and we gave up. We're like, oh god.
I remember spending like 30 minutes on launch and feeling insufficient in discussing her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have not had time. No, I actually got. Bays asked to get off the DBZ spoilers. Would y'all have had time to check out Queen of Night? I haven't. I don't know about Brock.
Not yet. I intend to. I just haven't been able to yet. We work a lot, and there is a child that Al has that takes up a lot of his time. So
Yeah.
I will definitely. I intend to get deep into that. Just not yet.
Anyways, so yes, to bring this one to an end, I think we summarized everything nicely there. Is there anything else we want to discuss, Brock, before we sign out?
No, I don't think so. This was a pretty straightforward
Yeah,
episode. I don't
definitely.
know if there's much more to wring out of it. No more blood to squeeze out of the stone.
One thing I will say is for now, the previous live stream is viewable again, which it was actually growing pretty well before Toei struck it. Well, didn't strike it, I guess made a claim on it. And it's available now. I don't know if that's going to remain. We'll see. I did upload another one with a smiley face, just a smiley sun on the screen for that part. I don't know anyone that would like try to watch these episodes as a way to watch Dragon Ball. It would be literally impossible to do that. So we'll see what happens. I think that's the only other thing I have. I think it will next episode, which should be next week, we will add the chat back to right above Brock's head. And so people will be able to see the chats on screen. I mean, we had done many episodes with no chats at all. That's why I took it off. But we are getting some now, so we'll put that back. I think is there anything else we want to say, Brock?
Nope.
Radical. Okay. Well, this has been Get the Mic episode 127. I think 127. Quicker Than Lightning.
Yep.
I have been your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Enough of this game, Goku. You're wrong about yourself.